All right.
All right. Are we good?
Yep.
Yeah, I'm already up to 1 megabyte.
We are so good.
Okay, maybe we might have to back off of maximum quality. I don't know.
We'll see how it goes.
They've been in business for 7 years, and they still don't know what they're doing. I guess a podcast seemed natural. Here's FounderQuest.
It should be. I've got a terabyte in here, so hopefully we'll be okay.
Now you're glad you bought the big disc.
Yeah, so I can podcast for like an hour without
exactly
crashing my computer.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I have been up since 4 o'clock. Ida woke up at 4 and decided she wasn't sleeping anymore.
Eesh.
Ouch.
So I may lean a bit on you guys for things like making sense.
I've been up since 1:30 because...
No, come on, Ben.
Oh, damn, Ben. You always have to one-up me. All right. So you guys recently went to RailsConf. You came back, thankfully. You weren't lured away by all those, I don't know. This is what I mean when I say I'm tired. Yeah, so you guys went to RailsConf, and
we did like get distracted by Elixir along the way. And
today's going to be the Punch Drunk podcast.
Yes, it is. Oh man, you guys recently came back from RailsConf. I was here editing. I was here like in my little home office, not at RailsConf, editing the show, all on my lonesome. I'm feeling pretty lonely and wistful, and now you guys are back, and I'm so happy.
You know what the best thing about RailsConf was? You didn't have to step outside to go to it because of all the sky bridges cool. there. We stayed in the conference hotel, which was like 3 blocks away from the conference center, but yet we walked through a sky bridge all the way there. Yeah. It was so handy.
This was in Minneapolis, right?
You know, like I think that's a theme. I don't think I've been outside at any of the RailsConfs I've gone to.
Really?
Really? No, like even like Atlanta, didn't go outside. Tried to walk someplace for like lunch. Let me tell you, you don't walk to places for lunch in Atlanta. You get in your Escalade.
Yeah, I did a lot of walking around outside in Kansas City.
So how many RailsConfs have you guys been to?
Oh wow!
Like I've been to I think 3 or 4.
I think I've been to 2.
I've spoken at 2.
Yeah, I think because I didn't go to RailsConf for a really long time because I went to RubyConf every year.
Yeah.
And I just never got to RailsConf until I think Phoenix was my first year at RailsConf.
Was it because you were trying to be one of those like hipsters who's like, I don't do Rails, I'm a Rubyist?
Yeah, I don't do Rails. Like, just tell me about garbage collection, okay? Yeah.
I think I've been to about 8 of them.
You went to like the first one, right?
Yeah, well, there's actually 2 first ones.
Well, that's confusing.
Yeah, funny story. So the first official RailsConf was Chicago, but the first international RailsConf happened before the first official RailsConf. And the first international RailsConf happened in Vancouver, Canada. So
funny story. I was on Twitter recently, and I was looking at the hashtag RubyFriends. And someone had posted the schedule from like the very first RailsConf, and I'm like looking at all the names because it's kind of nostalgic. It's like people that are extremely well known now, like all these different people. And whose name do I come across as one of the speakers at the very first RailsConf? But Ben Curtis. And that was like, that was cool.
Fun. Like, so the first RailsConf, the official one in Chicago, was the second technical conference I had attended. And the first one was that first international RailsConf, which happened a few months earlier. And what happened was I went to that one in Vancouver, and I was sitting there listening to the presentations, and they were great presentations. DHH has his famous picture from that one. And David A. Black spoke talking about how Ruby was just calm, peaceful language, and it was awesome. And I thought, you know what? I could do that. I could get up there and talk about stuff, just like they're getting up there and talking about stuff, right? And so I submitted my proposal for the first RailsConf and actually got in. I was shocked, but yeah, it was pretty cool.
So one of the things I'd like to talk about today is like the technical community around Ruby and just, tech in general has changed a lot. Like what year was like the first one? Was that like 2000 and...
That would have been 2006.
Yeah, that's about the time I started sort of getting into web development and, into Rails. And I mean, things have changed a lot not even just in the actual technologies, but in the ethos, right, around that. So like, what I mean by that is back then, like in 2006, we still had a lot of this sort of hacker in the basement ethos. I think Why the Lucky Stiff, who is this sort of like absurdist character, like nobody actually knew his name. I mean, some people knew it, but it was kind of supposed to be a mystery. He was this, merry prankster who made Ruby tutorials that were really cartoons. Yeah, it had this very sort of like this. It really captured the vibe of this sort of like chaotic, anarchistic tech scene that existed sort of back around the early aughts. And now I feel like in general tech has moved on to a sort of a more corporatist mode. Like now, open source projects we've got like React is run by Facebook. We've got, the big languages are all sponsored by, Google and stuff like that. So I don't know, like how has RailsConf changed, do you guys think? Do you think it sort of mirrored this changing technology in general, or is it still sort of plotting its own crazy, weird course?
I think I was going to ask, do you think kind of that quirky, fun side of tech that we had back then, and to some extent, I think in Ruby probably still do today, do you think that was kind of specific to tech in general, or was that specific to Ruby? Was that more of a Ruby thing?
I think it existed sort of a lot more in tech in general. Like you had the sort of character in society and culture of like this sort of unwashed. Okay, where am I going? This sort of this rogue, this person who doesn't respect authority, and he goes off and does these weird sort of genius offbeat things and brings them back to society. I mean, we had like Wired, like the original Wired, around before it got bought out and cannibalized and whatever. The original Wired had that same feel to it.
Yeah. Okay. So I get what you're saying. So, and you're saying like now, like what's his face now that what's his face is running for president, the guy that used to be in like the cult of the dead cow or whatever. Yeah. So Beto, so you're saying like Beto, he is kind of like that guy back then. And now like that guy is running for president and it's like mainstream.
Yeah. You can say that. That's a great sort of analogy.
Well, the generation that was fighting the man has now become the man. I think there are, definite arguments for both that tech in general, like Star was talking about, and also the Ruby community in particular, because, in 2005, 2006, the Ruby community was, even though it had been around for a while, especially in Japan, it was still very small and especially not well known in the US, right? And so the RubyConf occasions that had happened before RailsConf had started, those were typically small affairs, and there were a bunch of people who knew each other really well because it was a pretty tight-knit community. And there was space in the room for people like Y and that kind of fun, right? Even though at the same time in the tech industry writ large, you had things like the Java community, which was like completely different because it was very corporate, right? And Sun and the no stuff, no fluff, just stuff conferences, and all those big corporate-y things, right, were happening at the same time. Yeah.
I guess you're right. Yeah, those weren't ever even on my radar, so I probably discount them a little too much.
So I guess you had
two sides. But I think you're right, Star. I think in general, over the past 15 years, there has been a lot of co-opting of the space that we grew up in by the bigger corporations. Well, I mean, like you mentioned Facebook with React and things like that. I mean, like Facebook is a great example because it didn't exist, right, at the beginning of the time period we're talking about, and has grown up to be this huge influence on society as a whole. Well,
and then now you see even like Microsoft now is increasingly into open source and web tech. So I think even they've been getting into React a lot and that sort of thing. So that's kind of an interesting shift. Like you have the behemoth of whatever the past is now, coming in too. And
yeah, isn't Microsoft making a big bet on React Native for Windows? Like, didn't I see a big announcement about that recently?
I believe so. Yeah. They've built a lot of I think all of their Office suite is built on React already.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And I think like the web version or whatever at least, and I think the native version runs the same thing. But I know that I think that I have heard that they are interested in doing more native things with the web stack.
Can I just have a non sequitur, a sort of web versus native non sequitur?
Sure.
Because this is an interesting point, because we talked in a past show about how we all love Notion for taking notes and collaborating and stuff. And I was using that for my personal sort of writing notes, which I don't share with you guys because secrets. And then, Josh, you mentioned you're using an app called Bear, which is it's a native note-taking app that, it's for the Mac ecosystem, right? And, iPhone and all that. And so I started using that, and I use them both now. And I'm just like, oh my God, the native experience for note taking is so much better.
Yeah, I would tend to agree.
Maybe the collaboration aspects are a little bit better on Notion. I haven't tried those out in Bear. But like even with a very highly polished web application like Notion, there's you run into glitches. You run into weird UI glitches and maybe it's just because I'm on, Linux half the time or whatever. It's just like the native app has such a feeling of solidity to it. I was like, this really exists.
Well, I mean, if you're writing in a Notion, I mean, you're still just writing into like some, hidden whatever text input with a ton of JavaScript running behind it to pull out and do app mentions and all the other features that they have in there. And I think that, that still adds like some hidden overhead that maybe it's not like you can't see it all the time, but I think it's like subtly you can perceive it subtly, basically.
So tangent ended. I just wanted to take that little side note to plug Bear because it's a nice app for writing.
Yeah, I like it too. I don't think it does collaboration stuff. It's kind of like single purpose.
Oh, I don't know. I haven't tried it. I haven't looked.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So it's been really interesting to see this change in sort of tech and development. And I'm a little bit torn because first of all, I kind of love the whole DIY scrappy, why way of doing things. It broke my heart when he sort of quit the web and and killed his alternate persona or whatever it was. But, at the same time, it seems like the nature of programming is kind of changing. It's no longer so much a individual sport played by people by themselves. It's more of a team thing, right? It's much more social. Like the people getting into development now, which I think is great. A lot more different type of people are getting into development than just nerdy white boys who needed some way to escape reality in their teenager years, so they learned to program computers. There's a lot more just sort of normal people coming in, and I don't know. I think it's kind of cool, but it's just interesting how it's changing things. I don't think it's necessarily bad. It's just I mourn a little bit for the way things used to be, but I think that's just maybe an aspect of being human.
Yeah, and I mean it's just that it's going mainstream, so it's everyone's interested in it, including the large corporations and the entire world, and it's not like the small, close-knit community, interest community of people that it used to be where, you could find your people and it's you're all super excited about web development. I don't even know if you can be excited about the entirety of web development anymore with all the different ways to do it and different technologies and stuff. It's everyone, it seems like everyone's kind of in their little part of the industry even.
Seems like it's a side effect of, software eating the world. But yeah, I have a hard time believing that anybody starting out these days could have a complete grasp of everything involved in web development. That's a pretty tall order. But Searles, he gave a great talk on this topic at RailsConf. His talk was entitled "The Selfish Programmer." Yeah, you should definitely check it out.
What's it about? I wasn't going to watch it because I'm not selfish.
But he's advocating for how you should be. So this presentation, you can find it on the interwebs. It's definitely worth a watch. But the whole point was yes, we do spend a lot of time building software in teams these days. The selfish programmer just does things for fun and just does things for himself or herself. And when you think about that, you can have a little more liberty. You can have a little more fun with what you're doing.
Yeah, we kind of talked about that a little bit, I think, after the talk. I think both of us have kind of felt a little bit we used to just kind of program for fun and get an idea and get all excited about it and just hack on it all weekend or something. Just because we could. And these days it's much more what's the ROI on this? And am I going to, what's my business plan for this thing before I, even start, create my gem file or something. And it's, that's great. I mean, if you've got it, starting a business and, that has its place, but also, it's a lot of fun to just kind of start hacking on something because you love it or because you're just super excited about it and you want the thing that you're
Yeah,
build.
just because you have a business doesn't mean you can't do like personal development and personal growth and explore that stuff. It just like not every single thing you do has to be a part of the business.
Yeah.
Even if you're doing it during work hours, because like learning counts.
Yeah. I think for me, like a big factor in that is that work hours, like I have much less time in non-work hours anymore to do that stuff. And having children is pretty much the source of that problem. But yeah, I realized like it would be a lot easier to just, hack on something for a weekend if I didn't have to worry about, the 2 little kids that I have to entertain.
Yeah. If I had a time machine, I would go back and I would just shake myself and say, you are wasting so much time. You have no idea how good you have it. Like in the future, you're going to have about 6 hours a day to do everything that doesn't involve like appeasing a 3-year-old.
Yeah. So I've had to get much more serious about optimizing my, time and being productive. And unfortunately, like a lot of the fun hack projects kind of get cut out and, go by the wayside. But I think I'm going to try to kind of work a little more time. Probably during my work days now, to be honest, is like the only time that's going to happen. But I think you can still do that.
When you own the company, you definitely can do that, right? Maybe that's a call for it's time to have another hack week.
Yeah. The hack week was so much fun that we did earlier. We talked about that on the first episode of the podcast, but we basically, we took a long vacation for Christmas and then we came back and we didn't go back to work. We took another week off and worked on an Elixir project that we just wanted to build. So yeah, that was so much fun. And I hadn't done that in a really long time.
Yeah, I'm game. I don't know. We can talk about that.
Or we can just on a Friday declare next week is hack week.
You're acting. This is crazy, man. This is not on our quarterly
on
plan.
Our podcast.
Go back and listen to our systems episode because I think we're diverging a little bit.
You know what? We could just bust out Vim and start right now.
Yeah, you guys are freaking me out.
Yeah.
So.
No, yeah, but I mean, like Justin's talk was super. It was really inspiring, and
I think if you're a developer who is experiencing some burnout or like the slog is really getting on you, it's not quite as fun as it used to be. Go check out his talk and think about whether a little break from the norm might be helpful, give you some variety in your life. And
yeah, if that doesn't work, just like quit your jobs, just like leave, just like set it on fire, like burn some bridges. You only live once, YOLO.
Just take that stapler.
Yeah. I mean, like how many of us know, like I imagine, I don't know for certain, but I imagine that like throwing a Molotov cocktail would be extremely satisfying. Just like, you chuck it.
At the mainframe,
you chuck it, you get to hear it break. And then I imagine it has kind of a whooshing sound.
Then there's the smell of the melting plastic.
Exactly.
As long as you disable the fire suppression system before you do that, I think you're fine. Because otherwise you're dead.
Do we need to have like our attorney listen to this before we ship it? Like, is there some sort of like liability issue here?
This is not legal advice.
Like disclaimers.
We are not your lawyers.
Maybe we should have Barney like read a disclaimer at the end
do not do this at home
of the podcast.
Use at your own risk.
Man, I'm fed up with the sort of capitalist imperialist system. So I'm doubling down here.
Revolutionary. That's revolutionary. Star.
I'll be sitting here in my nice residential neighborhood in Seattle, and I'll just bring you my hot revolutionary takes.
Mm-hmm. So, like, to be honest, when I first got into Ruby, I got into Ruby like around, it was like late 2009 or something, I think, when I finally, like, I was interested in it before then, but I didn't get into it professionally until I had the opportunity to take on a client that was using Ruby. And it was a perfect opportunity to learn. But then I started working with you guys, and I honestly did not know who Y was at that point. And I think it was right around the time that he actually left the community. So remind me what some of his projects like from back before then, like what were the projects that made him?
For me, Y's poignant guide to Ruby, like it was eye-opening. Like I had to reread it a few times to really understand it because wow, it was pretty mind-blowing, but it was fantastic. Like, and really for me was a great introduction to Ruby and and to why I would care about Ruby. And he had another project. He had several projects that he did.
And these are still online, by the way, I think. So some of these you can go check them out
when he,
still.
When he
They
burned
didn't
his
disappear
account to the
along with
ground,
Y,
other people
thankfully.
like cloned the stuff really quickly before it all evaporated. But so the Poignant Guide, totally recommended. Anybody wants to read. Like Chunky Bacon is awesome. He also did Camping, which was like a mini framework in one Ruby file. So it was kind of like a Sinatra kind of thing, but like one file, and it had all this crazy code in it. And then there was Shoes, which was like a UI thing. A lot of fun, wacky experiments.
Yeah, his software and projects, to me, like they're almost more like art projects. They're meant to make you be like, oh my God, what is happening right now? Even
extreme creative element to them.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, I know he got a lot of like crap for like writing bad code or whatever by, Aaron Patterson and people who came in later. But, Aaron Patterson hasn't made me as happy as Y made me. So who's the winner there?
Well, I think everyone's still a winner with Y and Aaron Patterson in the same community.
In my head, I really hope Aaron doesn't listen to this podcast, but in my head, like Aaron developed this really kooky internet persona with all the, jokes and stuff as sort of like atonement for having sort of badmouth Y. But I think we should get Aaron. We should get Aaron on the podcast, man. We gotta. I want to work this out between you guys. Yeah. I'm going to psychoanalyze this person
and
who
Ruby.
I have like exchanged like 2 words with in my life. Who doesn't know me from Adam.
Well, I will say that I love, that's one of the things I really love about the Ruby community are the personalities that you get. And like Ben said, like kind of just the not goofy, but just quirky, doing things just because it's, creative and fun. And
totally. And one thing that surprised me that you guys came back with from RubyConf is that they asked people to like raise their hands it was their first RubyConf. And it was a lot of people.
Yeah, it was
right?
at least half the room that was new or there for the first time. I
say RubyConf. I meant RailsConf.
Right? Yeah, I was surprised. I was not expecting that many people. It could even been 2/3. I had a good look, but it was a lot.
It was a lot.
We have this like narrative that Rails is dying and going away and stuff, and that seems to like belie that, doesn't it?
I think that a lot of older people from Ruby have gone away. But as we've seen, like there's definitely new interest in it. Like it's not like interest is dying if half of RailsConf is new to the community, and RailsConf sold out.
Yeah, they sell it every year, I think.
The other day on Twitter, Tim Bray posted this tweet where he asked, if I wanted to start a new web project today, what should I do? What should I use? Like he's like I think it's probably Rails, but it's been so long, I should just ask. Like the responses that he got were like, yep, it's Rails. Some people are like, oh, I love React and this and that. But really, if you want the fastest way to get your project done, just use Rails because it works. And I think that's where we are. Like, it's obviously not the new sexy anymore, but it's definitely matured to the point where it's a no-brainer choice for people who want to build apps on the web. And I think that continues to attract new people into the community, even as, I think Josh is right, even as the older people in some cases go off to greener pastures and go play with Elixir or something like that.
Yeah, and like I think there's, like we said, that there's a lot of different kinds of developers out there. And we've touched on this a little bit in past episodes where like not every popular open source project or popular even methodology or way of building web applications is built for everyone. So there's, JavaScript is huge, but everyone uses JavaScript, and, from Facebook down to, a solo Rails developer or something. Maybe, all the employees at Facebook and Microsoft probably aren't going to RailsConf and getting excited about building like a full stack web application. But there's still a lot of people out there that don't have the resources of the large companies and would like to just ship their own project quickly and efficiently and not have to like learn all the crazy things you have to learn basically to be part of a huge team building, like rich web applications or something like that.
So here's a question for you. When I started doing Rails, for a long time, I was a freelancer, as we all were. It seemed like there was this huge ecosystem of freelancers doing Rails and small agencies, because Rails is perfect for a team of like 1 to 3 people to put out sites very quickly. I'm wondering, like, are there as many freelancers now as there used to be? Like, as things get more complicated, like, are there as many people out there sort of doing like the full stack web freelancing?
Yeah, I think so. If you cruise Upwork, you'll find tons of people who are.
I don't know about like, I don't know how much all of them are doing full stack. When Ben was freelancing 10 years ago, he was building Rails applications for for like a lot of solo people or solo founders and that sort of thing that had an idea and wanted to build like a startup or something. And you were doing basically the entire stack from start to finish. I honestly don't know how common that is anymore. Like as far as like solo freelancers, like I think a lot more people are learning to specialize, just because things are so much wider. But I don't know. I assume there's still a good number of people out there doing the full stack thing too.
It definitely seems though that there are fewer of those small to mid-sized agencies that we knew back in the day. Yeah, it's just my feeling. Maybe I'm just not as connected with them because I'm not doing freelancing as much anymore. But
I'm sorry, you cut out there for a second. Were you asking a question or anything?
No, you cut out. No, I wasn't asking.
Oh, well, no, you cut out.
Well, you guys cut out for me. So both of you cut out.
Screw you. I quit the company.
I knew this podcast wasn't going to work.
So I love the lunch sessions at conferences. I love chatting, and we sat down with a couple of the guys from Weed Maps.
They're a customer, right?
They are a customer, yes. And so we sat down with a couple of guys from Weed Maps, and then some of their coworkers came and sat down with them, and lo and behold, there's Brian. And like Brian and I have known each other because of the Rails community. Wow, it's got to be 13, 14 years now. And we haven't seen each other for like 10 years. And just because we haven't like been in the same place at the same time, but like we had that connection just because, hey, you're still here and I'm still here, and that was fun. So meeting new people is great, and seeing all new people coming in the community is great. But there's still some of us old timers hanging around. Still, got to represent for Caboose. It's all good.
Wait, what's Caboose again?
So Caboose was this little. I guess a little crowd of people who were involved in Ruby and Rails back around the two.
Oh, okay, because it's a rail thing.
Exactly,
thing.
Okay. The tail end of the train, right? Yep.
It only takes me about 5 minutes.
Yeah. So we had a little IRC channel where we'd help out people who were new to Rails, and which was like everybody at the time because Rails was new, right? Yeah. So a lot of that crowd has moved on to other adventures, but some of us are still kicking around.
It's rare, yeah. Being like kind of a third party observer to that exchange was fun because it was like watching Ben and Brian, who he did.
Yeah.
Did he do Rubinius? Was that his project? It was watching like two Jedis, passing in the night or whatever.
He is definitely the master in this situation. Like he is way, way beyond me as far as skill. But
well, it's not often that you get two people in general that have been around since the very beginning, kind of reminiscing about the very first good old days.
Yeah, they're gonna have to start like providing rocking chairs and peanuts, I think, at RailsConf. Just so you can have like the rocking chair track, you can do some whittling.
That would be a funny thing. Like we could just get a booth and put a rocking chair in it and put Ben in there. Actually, we were kind of talking about this in a strange way, but basically just like telling the new people about the good old days, sharing stories and that sort of thing. I don't know if we'll actually have the rocking chair, but this is something that I'm kind of.
This is what this podcast is turning into. Like,
well, I've toyed with the idea of actually making that a talk proposal for a RailsConf or RubyConf. Like, the history of, and, in the good old days. And let me tell you about Mongrel,
I saw a tweet about this from somebody who's like, I want to do a conference talk where it's like, let me tell you about BBS store games.
Yeah, Justin Searles did a talk kind of like that, with a lot of like throwbacks and history in it. I think a few years back. I think it was at a RubyConf, but it was really good as usual.
Yeah, we're just like the boomer is talking about going to like the sock hop and getting the malt.
Well, I think.
And things were simpler back then, like there weren't all these, young people with their hair and their, pierced faces.
one of the takeaways from this conversation, I think, should be, if you haven't gone to a technical conference, especially a Ruby or a Rails conference, you should definitely consider it. It's a fantastic place to go and meet great people. Maybe develop some friendships that'll last for many years to come. And learn some technical stuff as well. One of the things that Josh and I were reflecting on while we were there is like, well, some of the sessions we're just not that interested in because either we've heard it before or it's not really something that we're into. And that's fine. Like, you don't have to feel like you have to be in school and, sitting down for every seminar, right? But the people that we got to hang out with and the conversations that we had were fantastic. And so I think it's a great use of your time.
Like, you in particular came back and you were all like fired up about conferences. So now we're going to sponsor some conferences again, aren't we?
Well, the thing that, really stuck out to me about having so many new people there at that conference is like, they may not know who Honey Badger is.
Yeah, so what we're doing Southeast Ruby, like you said, you bought tickets for that one.
I got my plane ticket. Yeah, so
when is that happening?
It's going to be in August. Yeah, it's in Nashville, and then later in November, it's going to be in Nashville again. Right. There's going to be RubyConf.
Yeah,
we're double nashing. Yeah, it's really cool to see a new Ruby conference happening. One that's not. It's just like, we're a Ruby conference. We're not trying to be hip. We're not like I don't know, polyglot programmer conference.
Well, speaking of conferences, Josh, we haven't told Star about our plan. He may or may.
Oh, damn.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, we're going to get like a real-time
it's a reveal.
Reaction shot.
Here's the reveal. Yeah.
Reveal. Okay.
So Josh and I want to do a conference. We want to have a Honey Badger conference that's
BadgerConf.
Yeah, sure. That's technical and business. So kind of like MicroConf, but an unconf. You don't come for the presentations.
Kind of like
if you don't come for the presentations, you just come to hang out with awesome people and have good conversations about your business and about technology and stuff.
Yeah, more of a hangout, active.
We
type
talked
thing
about this in the
versus,
past.
Yeah, we did talk about this a little bit.
So where's this unconference going to happen?
I got to do it in Seattle, of course.
Yeah, because I was going to say we should do it in Bend.
Oh, Bend would be nice. Yeah.
What I want to do, I want to charter a bus in Portland, and we can have the meetup. People can fly into PDX and get on our bus, and then we'll all take a nice. It's like a 2.5 hour bus ride. We can watch a movie or something and go out to Bend, which is kind of like high desert country, really pretty and kind of smallish town feel. But I think it would be an interesting place. That's where they used to do Ruby on Rails, and it was one of my favorite conferences of all time. But so maybe I just want to.
So we would do
to
this in the winter, so we can have an extra day of.
Ooh, that's a good question. I don't know, because summers are nice up there, but the snowboarding is I've heard is good too.
I guess we'll have our listeners tweet at us and let us know if they would attend such a conference. If we were to put it on,
where would they tweet?
They tweet at FounderQuest, right?
At FounderQuest, that's right.
Yeah,
we
have a Twitter account.
We don't hype it nearly enough. Yeah. So, I like this idea.
Wow.
A couple of points just for people like me. I could only do so much like togetherness before I need to retreat and recharge. If this is like a Boy Scout camping trip where you're together with the same people for 5 days, that's going to be very difficult for me. And you're going to find me I'm just going to end up sort of painting myself with mud and running through the wilderness, throwing sticks at people. It's not going to be a good scene, guys.
How about 2 days?
With private cabins.
Oh, well, if I got my own cabin to retreat to, that's cool.
Right.
Yeah. I can do that. So to go along with your snowboarding activities, might I recommend a quiet fireside reading group?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think you have to have the reading room, right? The library with the pillows and stuff, so you can just have some quiet time.
Yeah, totally. Just a little nod to the people who aren't really extreme.
I would tend to I think the way I do it is just make everything completely optional. Hey, these guys are going to snowboard. You want to?
There you go. Yeah.
Come? Or you can hang out at the fire or whatever. I envision it being extremely loose.
Yeah, I'm liking this idea. Like you can do the snowboard, Josh. I'll like have a little hot chocolate station. I'll make people hot chocolate. They can sit around the fire and you know, have readings of poetry or whatever. I don't know. I'm not really that into poetry. I feel like I should be.
You'll recite poetry.
I'll recite my own poetry about my feelings.
You know what's great for hot chocolate? An electric kettle.
Cognac. You weren't going to say that. I know.
Electric kettle. Electric kettle is awesome for hot chocolate. You just put the mix in the cup. You pour your water in electric kettle. Boom, hot chocolate.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Have I told you guys about my kettle?
No.
We've gone like one step beyond that. Like we've had an electric kettle for like coffee and stuff forever. But a couple of years ago, I discovered that they have these. There's this company, Zoji Rushi, I think, which is Japanese. I'm probably pronouncing it wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
Bread
do rice
makers.
cookers, but they also do these electric kettles where it holds a gallon of water, and it's essentially a gigantic thermos with a heating element inside. And so for about like 5 watts, which is much, much less than like any light bulb or whatever, it's maybe like a low energy like LED light bulb. You get always on hot water to whatever temperature you need it. So it's amazing. Nice. It's one of those things where at first you're like, this is ridiculous, but then you just keep using it more and more and more. And like, I wish I would have had it when we had, Ida, because like making formula and stuff, you have to microwave. It's just,
Can you drop a link to that in our Slack channel?
Can, and maybe we can put it in the show notes too.
Yeah, they make great bread machines if you're in the market for one of those.
Nice.
Yeah, they're pretty good all around. They make so I've been curious about their rice cookers because do you have one, Ben?
No, we have a different brand, but yeah, I've seen them.
Well, they always advertise that they have like neural networks in them. And I'm like, what?
Do I need a neural network to make my rice? That's kind of...
Yeah, why does a rice cooker need a neural network? Like, what kind of crazy...
It's hardcore.
Like, what's it doing in there? And also, like, let me tell you, like they're not fooling me because they've been selling these things since the 90s, I think. So, like, this can't be that. I mean, this isn't like technology's advanced a little bit. So you're selling me your 90s era neural network rice cooker.
It's really...
But apparently they cook really good rice. So who am I? I'm not Japanese.
Maybe it's their marketing term for a state machine.
Yeah.
Like, maybe.
If it's like... It's either
on or off.
It's either warm, cook, or off. I mean, it has 3 decisions.
We're getting enough listeners, and this is a nerdy enough thing. Maybe somebody actually knows like the deal behind the neural network and this rice cooker. And so if you do, let us know, and we'll give you credit. We'll give you store credit towards future podcast episodes. Well, what a wild ride it's been. So if you like this episode and you want to like help us out, if you want to keep us, reminiscing about the good old days and our rocking chairs and stuff, head on over to iTunes and give us a 5-star review. We only accept 5-star reviews. And if you want to talk to us about why we only accept 5-star reviews, or if you have any questions or whatever, at FounderQuest is where we are on Twitter. And thank you guys. And we'll check you later. God, I got to work out this. See you next time. I got to work on this tagline business.
FounderQuest is a weekly podcast by the founders of Honey Badger. 0 instrumentation, 360-degree coverage of errors, outages, and service degradations for your web apps. If you have a web app, you need it. Available at honeybadger.io. Want more from the founders? Go to founderquestpodcast.com. That's one word. You can access our huge back catalog or sign up for our newsletter to get exclusive VIP content. FounderQuest is available on iTunes, Spotify, and other purveyors of fine podcasts. We'll see you next week.